Well, hello. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. Thank you for joining me, community, kind folks, creatives out there. Sorry about the little delay. My Windows program decided to reboot itself literally at like 6 o'clock exactly. That sucks. Anyway, this week, each week we try to come up with some kind of theme. And this week is just going to be all about blood. All of the things related to it from uh, creatures that feed on blood to lineage to what do you do after you've killed a creature and you're covered with blood, like all kinds of things, including what Tesla Ranger brings up in the chat. You quote, if it bleeds we can kill it, right? Which in our RPG community, we've translated that to if you stat it we can kill it. Yeah. Foolish QB says scheduled updates got to fix all the stuff you don't use right on time. Yeah, I know. And that's kind of my fault, because if I don't do those things, man, it's just like, hey, I'm going to decide to do it right now in the middle of between doing these live shows, I do a lot of writing, which I guess I could bring that up at a different time. But if I don't do that, like I'll be in the middle of writing something and there's a slight second before like my Google Docs will hit save and the computer will boot or switch over to something. I'm just like, oh, I lost all that information, you piece of okay, let's get into the point. So what do we mean? Today is Monster Monday. So Monster Monday, we're going to talk about blood. I believe I put blood and rage on there, but we're going to go a little bit deeper. As always, hour long. So we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive. And I want to give you a context to what I'm talking about. In a lot of our fantasy role-playing and role-playing in general, despite the fact that in our modern day, we would love to presume that we are an absolute meritocracy. Honestly, when the idea comes up, when it comes to bloodlines and blood lineages, we tend to get a little hyper focused on them. Some examples I wrote down are like some of your favorite reality individuals, like the Kardashians or something. Who's related to who? If just by birth, because one person's popular, let's take a look at all the other people in the family and see if they're worth taking a look at, or creating drama if they're not particularly exciting to look at. We have ourselves anyone and everyone who's rich and they're rich kids, right? What kind of lifestyles we should follow them because they are blood related or something. We talk about there's talk shows, and a very common thing on talk shows are baby mama drama. Woman has child, woman doesn't know who father is, let's look up who the father is. Even with rich and famous people, ladies pregnant, who's the daddy? Dead Man Storytellers, A&E has a new show series about Trump and Trump's kids and Trump's liaisons and the women he's attached to and all this kind of stuff. Rickard, good morning there. Good morning to you too. If it's not reality stars or the rich and famous of in the public eye, such as sporting people that in sports or entertainment, actors, musicians and such, we go to royal families. Who's a member of the royal family? Let's see who they are and what they do. And Trump the lineage, double entendre there, right? I mean, there's a Dead Man brings up the point that if you have someone in public office or has power, and the blood relations that they have with them, that we had there was a so-called controversy. Whenever our president has someone or in their past, we like to relate that someone in their past to them. So we had a president that had a lesbian daughter or niece or something like that, and it was just like, so one of the president's kids is on drugs or something, smoking weed, and it's like, oh no, the president's in trouble. It's like, whatever. So but we attach that to that. But let's not forget that some of our favorite some of our favorite media includes bloodlines that we get obsessed with without considering the ideas of merit. For example, Star Wars. we want to attach anyone and everything we can to the Skywalkers, right? Rickard brings up, boom, popped it right on in there, exactly where I was going. Skywalkers. Razor Mary Sue, unless she's a Skywalker, in which case everything's forgiven, right? Or we want to attribute all of these like these children to like Skywalker line, and then sublines off of that, an Obi-Wan line, a Darth Plagueis line, right? It has to be bloodlines, and it's like, well, what happened to all the other powerful Jedi that achieve their power through merit and hard work and randomness? You know what I mean? Like Foolish Kiwi says it runs both ways too. Many are loved for their lineage, many are hated without doing anything wrong. Think a dictator's second uncle. Did a video on the Fire Festival, FYRE, the Fire Festival, and they wanted to have a party on an island owned by Pablo Escobar, or once owned by Pablo Escobar, but owned by the family, right? That brings up, this notorious drug lord, and it brings up all kinds of connotations. Does the family want, are they prideful of their name, or do they want to live it down and hide it? They specifically said, please don't use our name in this. And what do? They plastered all over everything because they knew it would be popular, and how those who would go to the festival would be associated with this notorious drug dealers if there's something illicit going on, right? But it's probably an empty island, just like there are thousands of other empty islands in the Bahamas, right? So there's usually a powerful name or lineage is both. With Foolish Kiwi says it runs both ways, right? It's both notoriety and infamy at the same time. Game of Thrones is a big deal about that. Does a big deal about that. Everyone wants anyone else, their favorite character, ride a dragon. And what do they say? They try to figure out a way for them to have Targaryen bloodlines. Oh, Targaryen bloodlines. It's like, one character sets up a situation to become immune to fire, and it's like, are all Targaryens immune to fire? Maybe. Are they able to turn it on and off? Hey, my favorite character should be a Targaryen. No, my favorite character should be a Targaryen. And it's all about bloodlines, and then we end up pushing merit to the background. So what does all that have to do with creatures? Well, I'll let you know in a minute. Let me get back into the chat. Foolish Kiwi says, I would say that the buzz around said lineage is almost merit-based in some way, though, since it was usually based on built-up wealth or actions by one's ancestors. Their goal was for you to prosper. And a perfect example of that would be the Kennedy bloodline in American politics. It was built on running alcohol during Prohibition, right? So it was wealth built up through notorious actions. There was a history television show called The Men Who Built America, and many of them did a lot of underhanded, shady, gray legal, black market, backbiting things to become powerful individuals. And their last names, about to say Roosevelt's, the Gettys, wow, my brain just shut down. But there are lots of last names that were associated with the power. The Rothschilds, thank you very much. Your pocket GM. There's so many last names. You could probably come up with about 10 or 15 last names whose legacy lives till today, simply off of the wealth or privilege or power or even notoriety. Imagine having the last name of some of your most notorious individuals in the world. From what I understand, I don't have proof of this, but from what I understand, in Germany, a ton of people changed their last name from Hitler, who were just regular old people. Hitler might have been the last name Hitler might have been as popular as like a Johnson or what have you, a Smith in the United States. And then a lot of people were just like, oh shit, I'm changing my name, right? Or I'm marrying out of that name, or I want to have it deleted or something. Rickard says, should add that Game of Thrones, I don't know, SOLAF, is also about who gets to sit on the throne. So lineage adds validity to each contestant claims it. And okay. Song of Ice and Fire. Yes, Game of Thrones slash Song of Ice and Fire. So, so let's go into this is Monster Monday. We're going to talk about creating adversaries, and one of the things that is brought up when it comes to lineage, especially in fantasy gaming, although we towards the end we can talk about science fiction, is whose bloodline is necessary to sit on a throne, right? Whose bloodline brings with it the power, the prestige, the idea that this child or this individual or this person who has no idea what their bloodline is, attaching it to the actions of those in the past. Was someone a bloody dictator? Do we want that person on the throne? Maybe we should get rid of them, because there's almost like perception makes reality to it as well. If someone is a born from or child of a dictator and they had a bloody regime, people tend to assume that that person will be the same. And then by what do you call not just making perception reality, but like self-fulfilled prophecies, sometimes people try to push that bloodline towards their destiny, love it or hate it. Foolish Kiwi brings up, said, beholders are super obsessed with lineage. Any mild changes from one's own are considered automatically a defect, and you are sent off either to be alone or with ones just like you. And how often have we seen that in a storyline, right? The warlord wants to take over the world, goes to an oracle, says, hey Vince, what's going on? Brings up goes to an oracle, warlord goes to oracle says, hey, I've got two prophecies for you. Warlord's rubbing their hands like, sure, let me know what's going on. Oracle says, you're going to end up dominating the world. Sweet. Okay, what's the second part? You will be, your entire regime will be taken down by one of your children. You know, they will destroy you and marry your wife or something, or marry their own mother, or whatever it was. And it's like, well, I like the first part, but I'm going to go about stopping the second part. It's the self-fulfilled prophecy, right? The going so far as to murder children because of their relationship to a bloodline. Oh, cool. Wow. Vincent says, sadly, won't be able to join you guys for much longer. In 2 weeks, I will start another situation job-wise. Won't be able to make it live anymore. It's all right. Well, let's put it this way. Life matters, man. Good luck. Hope the job is both financially appealing and economically a promotion for you, or at least leads to something that's better. Yeah. So talking about bloodlines, sometimes there's even things where like Foolish Kiwi brings up about cuts both ways. Imagine yourself being the victim of, like, there's a horrible attack and there's like rabid wolves out in the wilderness. They attack a bunch of people. Everyone gets their pitchforks and torches. They go out to want to hunt down the rabid wolf. Rabid wolf smells someone or pins someone down in the group, sniffs them, and then walks away, or is allowed to be, allowed their nose to be petted by one individual. All of a sudden now we will start to associate, is this person's a similar bloodline? What's wrong with them? Are they cursed? We knew their ancient ancestors had were filled with blood rage. Maybe they're the ones filled with blood rage as well. Ben says, it's not really a job yet. It's a program to get me back into a job. Okay. Excellent, man. And please stay within the fold. Just so your project can get taken off the ground. So anyway, there's a possibility that in this gaming world, that one of the PCs, or maybe a community or a royal bloodline, or even someone who's, from the bottoms, from the commoners, might have a relationship with a bloodline, and those individuals might become extremely important. Yeah, absolutely. Keep in contact. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you, Vincent. Much more fun to be live in these videos and stuff. Because I think we all get inspired, and that's kind of the point of having these long form videos is just to be inspired and to world build. So, yeah, Foolish Kiwi says that's the age old dilemma. Do you kill all the goblins, even though there's one or two nice ones out of the thousands? Is it worth saving the few for all the problems that come along with it? Is it still evil if it's for the greater good and they're considered evil? Super fun tension. Yeah, exactly. And then we all rationalize things, right? It's the two paladins arguing over that exact fact, right? One paladin says, well, we should leave the nice ones alive because they didn't do anything wrong. Leave the pregnant goblin women and the goblin children alone. And then there's the other paladin like, well, I read the monster manual and they're all chaotic evil. We should kill them all. And it's living through that bloodline, right? Like, is the act of murdering them all part of the culture in making them evil? And yeah, and Vince, we're talking blood and all things related to it throughout the week. Today we're talking about, like, for Monster Monday, we're talking about adversaries and the problems that come up with bloodlines, and I'm going to segue into relating them to some of our monsters out there, in our fantasy and science fiction role playing, right? Vampiric bloodlines, and I don't know, trollish bloodlines, dragon bloodlines, and those kind of things. Many of the races in 5e have bloodlines related to them. Being a half orc is a bloodline. Well, being of any race is a bloodline, but I'm talking about the baggage that goes along with it. The being dragonborn versus being a character who is a sorcerer with a draconic bloodline. Are they the same? Are they related? Do they look at each other the same way? That kind of thing. Vince says, this reminds me of an old idea of a generation game where every PC plays a family instead of a single person, kind of like in Pendragon. I remember that too. And it must be Pendragon. But yes, there is a role-playing game where you do play generations, and the next character you plays off of the lineage and the actions of what happens beforehand. And it could be that you could play a game where PCs destroy all the goblins. All right. Whatever. They go to expedition. Keep on the borderlands and kill all the goblins. And I believe there's some bugbears in there, some hobgoblins, what have you. Sorry. And they go kill them. And then a generation later, an army amasses because they were killed. And then maybe there's a half orc in the party. And are they being drawn? Like, maybe because of their bloodline, it's assumed the orcs are like, well, you're going to be on our side, right? I know you live with them, but they don't really like you. You're going to join us when we demolish the city, right? I mean, they've been spitting on you, and they don't think you belong in the paladin order, and they think you're trash. And it's like, no, I want to gain their trust. And so do people look at them through their merit or through their blood? It's also a matter of, what if you are from a bloodline where creatures are hunting down that specific bloodline, or need that bloodline for casting spells or something. In Game of Thrones, there's the idea that there's power in royal blood, and then sacrificing them to great power. Vince says, I would love to build something like a community, and each player plays a family or clan or house or whatever, and all upgrades are either for the character, the community, or the clan. I can imagine it would be, I bet you could hack Blades in the Dark for that, where you can play a specific character and then also upgrade the family line, and change it from a gang to a family line, or crew, change it from crew to family lineage. And so as each player in the game does something both good and bad, it upgrades what they can or cannot do, including the enemies of that bloodline as well. Vince says, so you have to decide if the current character is more important than improving the lineage. Stuff like who or how many to split up wealth becomes important. Zevron, this is what's going on. Zevron says, is the theme of tonight's episode besides just blood? Well, it depends on how specified you would like to make it. But yes, we are talking about blood and lineage and bloodlines, and rage and such. For example, let's say there is I don't know, what's a good bestial creature like a devil dog or something like that. You could have displacer beasts or mindless creatures that may have been created by the gods, or a curse was sent out that anyone of a particular bloodline shall be killed brutally. And so the goblin witch curses the town as the people take their pitchforks and their torches and they kill all the goblins, and the goblin witch says, I curse you and all of your families that they will be wiped out. And then 5 generations later, they're just like, that was rumor back then. I kind of remember that, maybe, but then each one of these people starts dying horribly, and that could be a thing. The classic Vlad the Impaler Dracula, Dracul, who not necessarily a bloodline per se, but vampires have been related to bloodlines in terms of having protection over their mortal bloodline. So the vampire is immortal, but their lineage still lives on and is related to maybe these murders that this ancient vampire is committing. Or on the other hand, the vampire may have been attracted to a particular woman or bloodline, and anyone that happens to just happens to look like this individual, they are obsessed with or addicted to or something. Vince says, if you want to make bloodlines or blood important, there should be mechanics to detect or analyze it to see if you are pure or whatever. Otherwise, it's just a big guessing game. Yeah. And now this is a strange thing to say, but how did we figure that out in the past? Were there just a bunch of liars, or did well, what's this? How to say this? Perception makes reality, right? When an ancient peoples believes in bloodlines, the idea that someone would lie about their bloodline may not be as prolific. So, because in the past, we didn't have a way to figure out, 1100s, we didn't have a way to figure out bloodlines. It was just that people saw a child born or children born, and they just pretty much assumed. Now, I know there were cousins and adopted kids and things like that as well, but that might be an issue. It could be birthmarks or eye color, or there could be magic, a drop of blood into a fire or something, or into a cauldron, or a ritual or a magical item or something like that as well. There could be oracles, blind oracles that could tell someone's bloodline by just touching their forehead or whatnot. Zevron says, with bloodlines being a thing, bastard children would be a thing possibly. Say the old Lord had, I think it popped your question out of there. Lord had a baby with the maid. Game of Thrones deals heavily with bastard children, right? Out of children born out of wedlock, and here we are bumping up against meritocracies, right? No one cares about the bastard kids until they care about them, right? It's the king doesn't have a good lineage. Oh, let's go after the bastard kids. The king or queen, the queen hasn't given any children. Maybe we should start kidnapping some of the bastard kids or killing them or whatever. It's like you're not important until you are. Hypocrites, yes, but that's a thing. Foolish Kiwi says, building on that, maybe it is expensive, or maybe you can sneak by on appearances for less important matters, like simply getting into the city. But to many, into the upper district or royal court, you must be tested by a wizard. Sure, absolutely. What's the classic Man in the Iron Mask version, where someone looks like someone royal, so they just assume they are part of royalty until it can be proven that they are otherwise not the individual. The ones with the sharpest stick has the best bloodline. Over time, absolutely, right? Hey, if you're the more violent one, if you can prove it, then you become that way. Or you could have a society where, sure, you're the biggest and baddest warlord, but you want to either be inducted into a bloodline or one of your children, and by marriage or what have you, now you're given the respect. Like, we all know you can kick ass, but but we have to retroactively have the church or a shaman or oracle or something place you into that order or whatnot, or even have a ceremony where it's done. Vince says we did not manage it. That is the reason why breaking the marriage was a huge deal for women and almost no problem for men in old civilizations. You could always tell who is the mother, but the father has to be clear. And that tension is a great method for creating adversaries, whether they're humanoid or not, right? It's protect the moms. The dads are a dime a dozen, right? And the dads that step forward, whether it's through eye color or hair color or something, people could assume them into power or use them as pawns in the power. Hey, they have the same blonde hair, or golden eyes, or I don't know, the same birthmark on the shoulder. This must be the father, right? Prue says, I can't hear the word bloodline without remembering V's bloodline curse against the Black Dragon in Order of the Stick. The consequences were dire. It's a comedy comic. I didn't sign up for the feels. but that is a thing, right? Bloodline curses are an issue too. You could, for example, if you wanted to make a dark and gritty setting, you could attach bloodlines to different character classes, even if they're not sorcerers. So a barbarian could easily have a bloodline related to something bestial. Even a fighter's bloodline could be related to great warriors, or it could be like magical. And you could describe their abilities into a magical effect. There's plenty of fantasy stories where wizard, you couldn't learn magic, or you weren't gifted with quote unquote the sight unless you were of a particular bloodline, either by age or gender or region or birthmark, or being born under a particular star or celestial system and passing that bloodline on. And oftentimes there are, in medieval times, there was always the thing of, the woman has to, the lady has to give birth. Come on, Sophie, get down. Watch out. I know. Love you too. Sorry. Maternal lineages. Yeah, Zevron says, no one cares about the bastard kid, no matter how skilled a talker, mage, warrior, thinker they are, until they need them. Then it is their duty to their family. And I mean, how hypocritical is that, right? Like, no one cares about that person. We don't care how great of a warrior they are, or how much they struggle to get ahead. Game of Thrones, a perfect example of that. Jon Snow, please go away. Oh, we need Jon Snow back. We need him into the family. Boo-hoo, right? Eureka says, it depends on what type of game you want to run as well. If you can learn whose bloodline someone is, there's no reason for people to wonder about it, no mystery about it. Well, it depends on, I think the issue is not what their bloodline is, but the perceived importance the bloodline has. Especially, let's say someone has a fiendish bloodline, like, i.e. tieflings, right? Cambions in 5th edition have a bloodline, a very noticeable bloodline. And although 5th edition does away with prejudices, there you could make that a thing in the game, right? People don't trust them because they have fiendish blood in them, or people want to garner as much power and prestige from them, even though someone could be born a tiefling and have no idea what the hell their bloodline is, right? They're trying to live their life in merit, and everyone is assuming them to be of a particular mindset. Prue says Robin Hood's assassin books deal with it a lot. They revolve around Bastards, Game of Thrones 2, and a million other books. Always good tension to dig out. Exactly, right? It's as role players, we love to get to the bottom line. Like, well, once we figure out the bloodline is no big deal. But I think the story is the tension, right? We know and we don't care, but everyone else around them doesn't know and they absolutely care. You know, it's not us, it's not our own perception, it's the perception that everyone else has, and dealing with that. Vince says, Foolish Kiwi said, oof, maybe every bloodline has a vague curse. So the more bloodlines you have, the more cursed you are showing in dominant birthmarks. And there's hierarchy of those which are unmarried, unmarred, have only one. Oh, it popped you down. I can't. It's probably going to finish picking up. But yes, that is a possibility, right? I once brought up the idea that you could use the alignment system. I know I'm cursing, but I'm going to watch my mouth. You could use alignment in Dungeons and Dragons as like being born under an alignment, even though the PC doesn't act that way, and each alignment could have their own like birthmark. So people treat you like the birthmark or the alignment you're born under, literally, even though your personality has nothing to do with that birthmark. So if you're born under a lawful neutral birthmark, birthing, like whether it's through stars or a physical birthmark or a certain bloodline, people treat you like you treat the law absolutely, even though you as a player character may not. And certain factions may embrace you and others might push you away based on that. Vince says, I mean, in Game of Thrones, bloodlines are kind of a big deal, even outside of politics. Some have weird abilities like warging or controlling dragons, and some both. Exactly. Yeah, Pendragon's been mentioned. Yeah, as Zymox says, if bloodline is proven by paperwork, you get a hook for forgery and or theft. Yeah, there could be, you could have a whole plot line where someone finds the documentation proving a bloodline and tries to keep it away from each other, and of course killing the person that of course uncovers that piece of paper, right? Or finding a person to forge a bloodline paper, and then that forger of course is under threat as well. And so I mean, Dr. Banana one, Dr. Dabana 001 says that's the best alignment idea. Yeah, I mean, it's real. I can't remember if I did a video. I think I did 5 ways to use alignment without pigeonholing people or something. Maybe that video doesn't exist anymore. But anyway, but yeah, you could have. That's another thing, especially with the game Vampire, Vampire the Masquerade and its derivations, the White Wolf games. They have this idea of being part of a clan, as Vince brought up, being part of a clan or a faction. And so let's say you're a vampire born of the Ventru, the Blue Bloods, right? You in the game, the tension is created because your PC can do whatever they want, but the clan you're born under, the bloodline you're born under embraces you, and then the other clans push you away. And so the tension becomes, do you embrace them because they embrace you, or do you fight against them? And then the people who are not your allies, how hard do you try to become friends with them, or do you become enemies simply by the fact that they're pushing you away? And that's a great way to create tension as well. It's the dragonborn or tiefling in the group, or half-orc in the group, that's being pulled and prodded to join their more bestial or evil or nefarious purebloods. And you as a PC are like, I don't want to be part of that. But everyone assumes you are. Or not everyone, but different communities could assume you are. Rickard said there would be no bastards if someone could just cast a cantrip to find out who it is. The mystery of the bloodline is gone. You can always learn what bloodline anyone is. Well, the thing is that I don't think that would stop bastards. You're not going to stop people, humping each other, right? But what you could do, what would happen is children. I don't think it's as simple as once you have a cantrip to find a bloodline, it would be done, because there would be people who specifically want to have bastard kids, or there would be people who would want to keep people in their bloodline and then keep them away from the other people who have the cantrip to find them. Or it could be that they want everyone to know that their family members are part of this bloodline, because the more they breed, the more their seed is spilled, the more influence and power they have. So maybe everyone wants to, punch a baby out because they know that if they have a child with this bloodline, they're inducted into that family. I think there's tension to be had there. The knowledge itself isn't done. I don't think that's the end game. It's the tension involved when people try to use that information. Zevron says, since orcs and dragons seem to be able to breed with anything, it's possible there is a great and powerful magic within their blood. Because of this, royalty may seek them out for power, absolutely, which causes beauty and appearance stigmas to change in favor for tusks and scales. That's a thing, right? People seeking them out to give birth because being associated with, I don't know, a silver dragon, having that in your bloodline would raise your status. It could be viewed as a sign of peace and prosperity, of good luck. It could also be seen as, your bloodline could be seen as being blamed when bad things happen. Sometimes people conflate issues. So your bloodline could be associated with a plague or disease, or your bloodline could be associated with a series of terrible weather events, that kind of thing. And perception makes reality, right? Oh, there's another one of those Stormborn kids. We need to get rid of them. Or someone cast that cantrip, Rickard. Hey, they're a Stormborn kid. We should dash their brains against a rock. Right? It's and the family that tries to protect their kid, that's like, it's not our fault those storms came about, until the Stormborn kid with the lightning bolt in their shoulder starts becoming a storm cleric, right? When they get older. It's that kind of thing. Vince says, in old Vampire Masquerade, was it possible for a vampire to change clans even though their bloodline is almost always clear? Okay, the specifics of that are yes and no, meaning you could never change your bloodline, but you could always join another clan. You could become an ally of another clan. Let me put it that way. So PCs always gathered together because they were always from different clans. They became different coteries or coteries or whatever you want to, covens, covenants of sorts. They gathered together from different bloodlines. So if you were born Nosferatu, you'll always be Nosferatu. Now, how you relate to being that way is the story. Do you go, oh, well, I'm going to always be Nosferatu, so I'm going to join them and always be like them? Or do you work against them? Do you try to ignore both sides and say, look, I'm my own person? Prue says, in my setting, the Dragonborn can be hatched or born. The egg is born. The egg born is considered better because they are believed to be closer to dragons, so they have higher status. It has become a central tension. Yeah, I'm sorry. I read the next part. Would chaotic neutral blood be raspberry schnapps and confetti? Yeah, but what Prue is bringing up is that you don't necessarily need to make this a mechanical effect. You could. You can absolutely say, all right, if you're of this bloodline, you get a bonus, or you have certain magical abilities, or maybe, what is it? There's a feat that gives you a magical cantrip, the ability to cast a magical cantrip. That could be it. Caius, thank you for joining. Hey, Caius of Glantry, what's going on there, man? Long time no speak. But yeah, you could also explain, like Prue is bringing up, there's different status amongst even the Dragonborn. So that could also be a thing as well. Vince says, weird, I never really thought. I'm sorry, Kaya says, a medieval story gives the Queen of England a demon bloodline. Account of Anjou, her ancestor, had a wife who never stayed in church for mass. Curious, he forced her, and she turned into a demon and fled. Yeah, and that storyline of like having people maybe rebel against their bloodline, or having these weird, I guess you could call them, associate them with mutants in the bloodline, can cast a shadow amongst your own, right? Or, the family member that flees the church and becomes a demon or a fiend or something could cast things against your family, maybe putting the guild goes downhill, you lose your money, your influence, your power, that kind of thing. Vince says, weird, I never really thought about why PC groups form in Vampire the Masquerade before, so there is nothing but practical reasons for them to work together. Is this normal? Do all vampires do that? For me, it always felt like they primarily worked together inside their clans. No, actually, the actually, here I am doing a well actually. um in Vampire the Masquerade, the the presumed tension was that the PCs would be from different clans, and they would constantly being pulled and prodded to join the machinations of each of the clans. So you get 5 PCs, 5 of them are from different clans, and then there's the tension of them being friends but being pulled away to be frenemies of each other, right? So no, it wasn't that the PCs would be all from one clan, although they could each have the same outlook on life. And so, for example, they could all. I had a game where they were all the PCs lived in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and the art museum was Elysium and such. And so they bonded together because they wanted to make Philadelphia their city. The prince died, and everyone bonded together to make Philadelphia theirs, and rebelled against all the other clans that wanted to hold it for their own. Oh, Vince says, I just realized that we are 13 view. Oh, wow. Sweet. For those who are not participating in the chat, which is fine. Thank you for joining me. And thanks for being part of like a long form RPG discussion on a daily basis. Kind of strange too. Ricker says, I view it more on an impact level. What would Tech X effect on the world be? If bloodlines are important and you or others can find out your bloodlines, why wouldn't that happen on a regular basis? Well, you bring up a good point that in some ways we kind of do that. A woman steps forward and says, my child, I have a bastard child from someone important like Brad Pitt or something, right? You know, someone famous. All of a sudden, everyone starts scrambling like, why don't we do a blood test? You know, and how many times in television shows has that happened, and they spend 3 episodes before someone gets a blood test, when you're like scratching your head like, dude, what's the deal? Everyone get a blood test. We can figure this out right now. But then even after that, barring the fact that having a child of 2 people's bloodline kind of deals with their medical history, who cares who their mom or dad is, right? Other than your blood history, your genetic history, you don't need to know anything. But we still make that very important. And I do agree with you that technology wouldn't. I think you're being far more reasonable than most people are. So I'm not. I guess I'm picking on you, but I'm not. I'm saying that, yeah, you're right. But at the same time, we can be pretty stupid too. Kaiser Galantry says, in Adventures of Middle Earth, revealing a hidden bloodline can inspire allies and scare enemies. Yeah, you step on a battlefield and find out that you're like the 13th son of, like, you know, a major warlord, and people start to think twice, like, I don't know if I should fight this person. They're from a major bloodline where they've never lost a battle, right? That is a thing. I'm sorry, I'm reading the chat while we talk about these things. Zephron says, anyone goes on to say, in the Witcher series, there was a story how King Falster's daughter was born a Striga, a vampire, from a defect in birth, incest, I believe. Despite her killing countless innocents, he refused to allow anyone to kill her. That is his child, and anyone who killed her is committing treason. See, and that's the thing, from anything from out of wedlock, incest, born from a vampire, and all these things, we could use those as things that push a story forward, and the tension of that could pull people in different ways. For example, the PCs might be hunted, and because someone, I'm just making this up, like someone is a half orc, the orcs may say, well, you can come to us for safety or healing or protection, right? Even though the half orcs could be, you know, friggin' bloody murderers. Do the PCs go to them for healing potions and safety against I don't know, rampaging giants or something? And then how are they perceived as well? That's the thing. Foolish says, hey, ancestry.com, get on the sponsors for this stream. Yeah, you know what? There's a not to diverge too much, but there is a syndrome going on with the people who are into the ancestry.com and DNA sequencing, that people start to, when they find out that they are of a particular ancestral bloodline, they start to delete the histories they have with the bloodline they think they're associated with and start embracing the cultures of the bloodline that they now think that they're associated with, which is a weird thing. It's like if you were born and raised a certain way, why would you not keep those traditions? But it's crazy though. Vince says this detect bloodline tech thing reminds me of Gattaca. Yep, where every person constantly is checked for their genes and the insane lengths the protagonist goes to fake it. Exactly. And Rickard says in terms of the blood test in real life, you need to find the unknown parent to get the sample. If you have magic, you'd have to restrict it if you want tension. Well, it could be the same thing, right? You need to find. It may not be a radar detector. You might need to find that person with the bloodline, and then you could do it like, does it take a ritual? Do both people need to be available? Does the ritual reveal like a scar or a birth mark on their body, so someone literally has to see it? You can't record it. Like you would have to come up with ways to do it. If it's like a radar where you could just snap your fingers and figure out whose bloodline is around the world, I would say that's far too powerful. Maybe maybe someone has vision or by touch or a drop of blood or touching their forehead or something like that. Like you might want to limit it that way. But yeah, I do agree with that. The tension would be gone unless all those people turn blue and then people start murdering them in the streets, in which case it's like, please don't test my bloodline, because if I start turning blue, people might start hunting me down, right? Yeah, Zymox, Foolish Kiwi kind of says the same thing I said. Zymox says you also have nobles who get high military ranks, regardless of competence. It could create tension between the rank and file, who wants person X instead, and their commander. Technology and magic can be cost prohibitive. But you know what? How many times have we seen people put into positions of power and everyone just shakes their head like, shit, do I have to follow them? That was a big part of the television show series Band of Brothers. People in leadership roles that don't need to be there. That was up until very recent, 1800s, 1900s, because you were born of a certain, even today we do that, right? If we look for acting talent amongst the kids of actors, there's no telling that acting is acting is a trait that's passed on by bloodline, right? But we look for their kids and to see if they are the same. PKs, preacher's kids, right? Preacher has a kid. We look to see if their child is going to be pure evil or an absolute purity, right? With little wings on their back and a halo over their head, right? We look for that. They're no different than the person who has zero relationship. I mean, is there equal chance? Sure, we have, it's nurture versus nature, right? If you're born within a certain type of culture, chances are you're going to have more traits associated with it, but there's nothing saying that. But the tension involved is sweet. Foolish Kiwi said, I would say making it severely expensive or requiring a rare material that crumbles even if it fails. And Rickard goes on to say, yeah, it's just that we talked a lot about how things could be found out and the importance of the blood, but didn't talk too much about restrictions and consequences on the world. And proofs, this happens constantly in real life. Yes. So, for example, we talk about bloodlines, but is there proven proven power in the bloodline? Is there proven danger in the bloodline? For example, there could be trolls or beasts or demons or celestials or any other kind of creatures in the world that want to eliminate them or even embrace them or use them for blood rituals or bring them into the fold. And then that could be a tension in and of itself. Hey, someone finds out that you have draconic blood. So the dragons, we know that there are dragons in this world. you might be a danger to us because those dragons might come and gather you, or that people might drag those draconic children out into the wild and pin them to stones and leave them out there to die because they're afraid the dragons might come to them to grab the children. But then what if there's a parent that's like, that kid's mine. I don't care about their draconic heritage. I'm going to raise them. Whatever. It's a birthmark. That doesn't mean they're going to be a dragon or worship dragons or even gain dragon scales. We don't know that for a fact. I'm going to raise them differently. And that in itself might be the tension generator. Kaya says, I like the idea of bloodlines having a power. You can't just acquire the power by beating them. You have to complete ritual wedding spell that includes willing family members as components. Ooh, that would be sweet. So not only may you have to be born into it, you could be wed into it. Basically, you are now of our blood, and that could be a thing. How many times have we seen in mass media where someone slices their thumb or their palm, and the two people slice the blood, and then they grasp hands in friendship or love or devotion to each other, or they spill their blood into a cauldron and they all drink of the same drink or what have you. That could be a thing to become of that bloodline, and now maybe you're marked forever. Maybe if someone uses, what is the in 5th edition, they don't have detect good and evil. Well, it's detection of whatever. You know what I'm talking about. It doesn't detect good and evil, it detects fiends and celestials and fae and elementals. Maybe when you get that bloodline, you appear as one of those. That could be a thing. My fighter is now married to this woman of a draconic bloodline, and now that I'm married into it and went through the blood ritual, now I appear that way. I don't have to have their powers, or maybe I get the feat that allows me to have a cantrip that gives me a whatever. You know the deep dive I'm going down into. I'm going down that rabbit hole and stuff, right? Foolish Kiwi says, technically we know that sociopathy is somewhat inheritable, and if you're on that spectrum, you have an advantage in acting, or at least lying. Maybe there's some merit to that. And I'm not exactly that. My point is that fight between nurture and nature, between merit and blood, is a real thing in real life today. That might be a thing in the game. That could be a perfect reason. Like, for example, someone plays a very boring fighter in the game, but after they hit 4th level, when they become a different class, it might not be that they chose to become a different class or choose their powers. It could be that their bloodline pushes them some way, right? It could be your stereotypical fighter becomes a warlock, not because they're devoted to something, but because this extra power from this other world, the Raven Queen is like, you are of my blood and you will be my, you will come into my fold. You are my child. And the fighter's just like, I don't want that. And they're gifted with these powers. And they're like, do I refuse to use those powers? Now I'm put in a position where I need those powers, right? That could be a thing where, yes, your talents are based on your bloodline, whether you like it or not, right? Your Pocket GM says, I would gladly have accepted a heaping spoonful of nepotism when I got out of school, was looking for a job. Hell yeah, right? How many people turn it down? And no offense, but good on you for turning down the nepotism, but it is a real thing, right? It's a way for you to get into the door. It is okay. I'm gonna say it so you guys don't have to say it. It is affirmative action, right? Do I put my foot in the door because of my bloodline? I have a visual bloodline, right? And the people who are against that, oh, he only got that job or that position because he's African American. He took the position of someone else. And then the people who are of my family and my bloodline are like, great, you finally got an opportunity. Otherwise, you wouldn't have an opportunity. And then there's the tension in the middle for myself, right? I'm thinking, well, I don't want it handed to me. I earned this position and I've got the position. And so that's a real thing. So though that tension amongst different factions could be a thing as well. Your Pocket GM says 5e paladins can't detect alignments, only creature types, fiends, celestials, etc. And that's my point, right? You could if you in your setting, you could have a bloodline that appears as a fiend or celestial or elemental or fey creature, e- even if you don't have, even though you aren't of that. For example, you could say in your world that that wizards that learn fey magic slowly have fey blood in them, and when someone detects them, they come up as having fey blood in them. Druids would be a perfect example of that, right? Maybe druids start having a certain bloodline in them as they start to wild change and shape shift into these different creatures, so that their bloodline comes up as something. Irrespective of the mechanics, the narrative may be that they appear as that way to people through rituals or something, or people could just assume that they are. Dead man is storyteller with you little bunny. Foolish Q, yeah, breeding like rabbits could be a thing too. Foolish Q, so they are blossoming into a mage, even though they are trained to be a warrior. Exactly. It could. Some people have natural talents related to their lineage, and some people may fall into it, like lean into their talents, and some people might go away from their talents, especially if they are rather lethal, right? How many children born of serial killers lean into their talents? You know, Prue Prue says, Bunny, you couldn't find a squirrel, dead man? The squirrel is our family symbol in this channel, you know it. Oh, there's no squirrel chipmunk. It's the same thing. Squirrel. So, yeah, Prue says in Norway there is, or was, or is a whole thing where affirmative action type law was passed to help women into powerful positions. They are now referred to negatively as gold skirts by some people. Yes, exactly. And the thing is that we know through common sense that things are not black and white. Doing in essence, affirmative action was a way of life in ancient times. It was, if you are of a certain bloodline, you get pushed further ahead than everyone else, right? They just didn't question it because some people thought it was decree from the gods. Others said, well, it's decree from the kings and queens and leaders of our world. So sure, shrugged their shoulders. And then there was a huge group on the other end that was like, F that. I don't care if they were born from a pharaoh or something like that. That doesn't give them any skills or any special abilities to lead this country. I think we should lead this country, right? That is a thing. And so turning the knobs up and down on the volume of that, I think, can create a lot of ideas where the PCs might, let's say you start out a game, your typical humanoid monstrous beasts on the outside, PCs fight them. Okay. PCs then realize, well, maybe there's a bloodline of the orcs and half orcs that aren't evil, but everyone is considering them to be all of the same group. And then there's once the half orcs are inducted into society, well, they're at the bottom rung. Is there, quote unquote, an affirmative action to bring them ahead? You know, the wizard school that doesn't bring in the half orcs, it's like, are they just assuming that they're all stupid because they don't have like +2 to their intelligence, right? Are they collectively known as being bestial and stupid, or is it the fact that they're just not allowed to go in? Therefore, there are very few half orc wizards, right? I mean, it's a thing. And gray area, is it true? The answer, of course, is always yes and no. Foolish Kiwi says, I wanted to go into the medical field as a kid, but lo and behold, the only thing I'm good at is music. It runs in the family, so it's my job now. This feels too familiar. That's a thing. And Prue says, I come from a line of aggressively mediocre but very hardworking people on both sides. Exactly. There's how many times have we seen stories where a child from a bad neighborhood is the first to go to college, or is the first to be extremely good at like some kind of sporting event, or is the first to dominate in, like, I don't know, chess, or create a special device, or is very, excellent public speaker or actor, wants to leave their group, but the group pulls them back and says, well, you're leaving our neighborhood, you're leaving our family, you're leaving our quote unquote bloodline behind. You think you're better than us, and the others that are like, you should leave because we don't want you associated with us. Um, Alcoholism is a thing, right? The person who is born from a line of alcoholics thinks of themselves differently. Am I going to be that way? How do I feel about other people? It's the nature and nurture thing all combined together. Foolish Kiwi says, I love the term aggressively mediocre and stealing it. Yeah, exactly. Right. I love it too. Zymox says, I was just thinking about how someone can react to their parents on the opposite side. A police officer's child becoming a criminal and being better having grown up around law enforcement. Not really blood, but heritage in one way. And honestly, yes, we're talking blood, but heritage has a lot to do with it because, as was mentioned far earlier in the chat, we tend to assume a bloodline is associated with past actions, right? If you came from 5 generations of police officers and you become a criminal, you're not just a criminal, you're a criminal and you've like cast a bad light on the entire family. And then what if one of the family members is like, no, I think they can be rehabilitated. I still want to be friends with them. And the other family members are like, oh, you should forget them. They should let them rot in jail. F them, blah, blah, blah. They know we're a police family. They should have never done X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? That's a real thing, and not necessarily I don't believe in all or nothings, and I think stories come about through all or nothings. It's the Dune, the book's Dune comes about that. All the Bene Gesserit are females, except for the one male child born, right? It's the all the oracles are blind in my world until there's an oracle that's not blind. And all the dragonborn are of I don't know, black dragon blood or something until one isn't. All the tieflings in my world are independent until the one that is born that is a fiendish usurper or something. There's always an exception to the rule, and I think there's far more exceptions than people give it. But again, perception makes reality. Different communities have different beliefs and hold the evidence given to them, they may hold true, and convincing them otherwise of the evidence that they see might be different as well. And then conflicting those two different types of evidence. The half orc, one village is attacked by orcs and half orcs, so they think all half orcs are evil. The other village is protected by the half orc paladin, and so therefore they think they're all good. And then hilarity ensues. Zymox says half my dad's family are cops, the other half are criminals, right? Sometimes, in many ways, sometimes we see extremes on both sides. The police family and the one kid that's like, I'm going a complete opposite direction, and it's like, why? You don't need to. You could become a dentist or, I don't know, bus driver. Like, you don't have to be a criminal because your family are all cops, right? But sometimes there's an imperative to go as far away from the things that push you towards what everyone wants you to be. Foolish Kiwi talks about music, right? If you come from a musical family, love it or hate it, everyone's looking at you like, you're going to pick up an instrument, right? And you're like, no, I thought about making a lawn service. You know what I mean? Foolish Keep says, you'd be surprised how common that is, Zymok, but it's a crazy dynamic nonetheless. It's very common. Prue says, my dad used to be a cop. I remember it being a classic problem among his colleagues for their kids to get into all kinds of trouble. That tests your morals as police for sure. Yeah, the classic story, right? Cop has kid, gets in trouble. Other cops look out for troubling kid. Cop thinks, do I keep bailing them out using my influence, or do I let them suffer knowing I can withdraw a ton of influence? Or I could actually be anti-influential, making it even harder for them than the average person, right? Dead Man, a Storyteller, says the series Blue Bloods is similar to that. I believe it was the youngest son of the police chief was into some shady stuff, and that's a thing. Television shows deal with that. Medical shows deal with that. A child, the famous heart surgeon has a son who just isn't quite as good. That kind of thing, right? Some actually idiotic things. We're all police, and you join the fire department. Really? We're all lawyers. You're going to become a brain surgeon? How dare you? It's like, wait, what? So anyway, guys, we're going past an hour. This week, we're going to talk about all things blood related. Tomorrow's Tips and Tricks Tuesday, we're going to get a little more mechanical, dealing with injury, blood injuries, disease, long-term effects, healing, those kind of things. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But yes, this week is all bloodlines, and everything in between. We really didn't get far into like actual monsters and their motivations for going after certain bloodlines or embracing certain bloodlines, except for my usual default where I go towards like the humanoids. But other than that, yeah. Guys, thank you very much. Foolish Kiwi says, I am Rolf, son of a shepherd. Bonus points if you read it in his voice automatically. I don't think I did. Vikings? I believe that is it. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for joining me. I'm going to end this with a commercial. Everybody, guys, have a great day. So anyway, I'm DBJ, DeVabrian Jackson. I'm part of Critical Hit Publishing. Please like, share, subscribe. If you're into long form, no nonsense RPG content, please support the channel, join the Discord, check us out on Drive Through RPG. Everybody, have a great day. See you tomorrow.